Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of a Tubular Bugle edition. This audio podcast is part of a Redacted and Turbulance. This audio podcast is part of a Bostics Jump Off, and this audio podcast is part of a Storm Robotics production. In this audio podcast, looking at sort of the conclusion, and sort of the summary aspects of peer reviewed and published works from 2013. So, in around the sort of conclusion, there needs to be sort of a balance in the assessment of and respect for the attributes of graduate and mature applicants to medical institutions. Part of the change required would be for institutions to reflect deeper on the principles on the sort of main principle on the main sort of principles or the principles of the National Health Service NHS and the attributes of graduate and mature medical applicants sort of more and sort of the sort of attributes of graduate and mature applicants sort of more sort of robust and more sort of intently. And additional merits to be included as potential selection criteria would be sort of the research and publications research and publications and contribution to clinical care and or sort of interventions. A separate entry application process is required for graduate and mature medical school candidates for a number of reasons. There are six advantages. There are six advantages in the implementation of a sort of proposed process. Number one, it will better select tomorrow's doctors or physicians in accordance with the Medical Schools Council and the General Medical Council objectives. Number two, graduate and mature applicants will be better recognized for distinctive attributes. Number three, the application process will be less arbitrary. Number four, the selection bias will be reduced. Number five, it will set a more established balance between graduate and mature and school leaver applicants. And six, potential competency versus actual competency will also be better distinguished. If there is or are sort of graduate and mature candidates who possess a unique insight into medical practices, then the individual or individuals should be considered seriously. Doctors today need to know their patients' voices are important and they influence decision making processes. In essence, two populations of applicants exist. Selection and admission of both groups of applicants should be maintained with balance and fairness and justice. In instigating a separate application process and re-evaluating the credentials and criteria for the graduate and mature aspirant doctor or physician should be at the top of medical schools educational agenda. And at present there is a potential selection bias and a potential selection bias and discrimination when comparing two cohorts. Having a separate application process would provide a medical admissions panels with the knowledge of how a mature or graduate applicant's background reflects back to the values of the values and the mission of the National Health Service or NHS. So in around sort of the summary, in around the summary. So for graduate and mature applicants, the application process or process should include a submission, for example, of a curriculum vitae or CV, and a personal statement, and be separate to the UCAS approach, or involving a selection criteria. Involving a selection criteria demonstrating competencies relating to medicine and reflecting on NHS principles. The, this provides a parallel channel enabling assessment on a level playing field. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast is part of a Tubular Bugle edition. This audio podcast is part of a Redacted and Turbulance. And this audio podcast is part of a Bostics Jump Off. And this audio podcast is part of a Storm Robotics production.